back to Jack's Corner, where truth and reality have a seat at the table. Never before has evil in this country so nakedly displayed itself. The Democrat left makes no pretense about not acting in the best interest of the country, but rather unblushingly in their own best interest to hold on to the power that they want and with no plans for you. They just want to be in control just so that they can rule over you. Now, folks, you can't tell me of one thing the Democrat left has proposed to make your life better or this country safer. It's as if Satan is here spitting in your eye, taunting you to do something about it. And why does he do that? Because he knows most of you will do nothing about it. Well, with that, let me give you 3 examples where President Trump had it right, but the Democrat left tried to scare you away from it. First, the border, the next D.C. crime problem, and then the tariffs. We'll get into each of those in greater depth here in a minute. But the Democrat left lied to you, and folks, it wasn't mere miscalculation on their behalf. They were trying to keep Trump from winning for the American people. They are so filled with hatred that they have become crazed and obsessed with their own lust for power, regardless of how it harms you. How did all this happen and come about? Well, your toxic tolerance of the Democrats is the cause. Let me ask you this. How many of you tolerate those in your family or within your friendships or other associations who you know voted for the Democrat leftist infection that has been destroying this country for decades? You listened to their lies. You knew they were lies. But somehow, psychologically, you justified your continued association with people that you are unequally yoked with. You enable them and their corruption because you wanted to be friends and be considered a nice person, didn't you? Why? How many refused to implement severe accountability and consequences for those who do wrong? It's time to take stock of your associations and likely time to average up instead of averaging down. Many of you have known for ages that the Democrat left has never had any solutions to any of your problems or any of our problems. In fact, you also knew them to be the ones who created the problems. Then we have those on the right who were screaming to you about the simplicity of the solutions to the problems, but you ignored them because you thought that their tone was too harsh or that they were not being nice, or some strange reason you feared that your associations with those on the left would be jeopardized, as if you had anything to gain from it in the first place. I have nothing in common with those on the left. Why would I? Why would you? God warned us about that, and all too many Christians validate evil by their associations. Stop it. Cozying up to those on the dysfunctional left for concern that you may be defriended or disliked is a disgusting and damnable cowardice. It also tells us which side you have chosen, particularly when presented with the admonition and the saying that you have heard so many times, "Choose ye this day who you will serve. As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord." So who do you serve? Are you serving your desires such that you prefer to party with the sinners as opposed to the fellowship with the saints? Do you really think there's anything to be gained by partying with the sinners? Do you really think there will be no consequence to who you choose to associate with? You think that there's no consequence to the way you live and the life that you live? Better yet, do you really think there will be no consequences for your financial support of what is evil? Now, we saw hope with the boycott that came about as a result of Bud Light and that Mulvaney fiasco. And we saw what we were able to do with that boycott and what we could change and what change we could bring about. But we are so inconsistent. I have absolutely no desire to associate with the corrupt, the wicked, the Democrat left. And I certainly don't want to support and finance the destruction of my freedoms any more than I have to. I can tell you from Hollywood actors to movies to retail stores to various products that I have a long list of that I will not patronize because I'm not going to support my own destruction or the destruction of my freedoms or this country. You talk about wanting to do something and take action, but don't know how? Well, the easiest way to start is with what you spend your money on. Boycott and write letters as to why you are ceasing to support a product or a company. Let them know. It doesn't get any easier than that, folks. Our country had to be nearly destroyed, if it hasn't already been and we just haven't seen it, by the treasonous open border policies imposed upon all of us by the Democrat left. The situation had to become so bad that many finally were forced to vote correctly, not because they were smart or wise in what they did, but only because we were suffering enough, and it was that suffering that brought about a correction in our actions. Shame on us that it took that. President Trump fixed the border issue within 60 days. It was just that simple. But you allowed the Democrat left and the media to continue with their diatribes in which they claimed that it was a congressional problem and had to be solved with congressional legislation. Where's the accountability? Where's the punishment for those who lied? Where are the consequences for those who spoke such lies? The Democrat left was unanimous in their treasonous actions, but there were a handful of Republicans who were in bed with this treason, such as Senator Langford of Oklahoma. I spared him no criticism, and I don't spare any Republican, for that matter, of criticism when they're siding up with the wrong side and they're doing what's wrong, or when they're just being plain stupid. Then we had the crime-ridden Washington, D.C. issue. President Trump cured that with the National Guard within 8 days. The bottom dropped out of the crime problem in D.C. I was there just a week ago for a conference and actually felt safe enough to do some shopping in the inner city, walking around. Why are those who scream against the use of the National Guard not being held to account? It was unanimous on the Democrat side, and again, there were a handful of Republicans who opposed it, and in what I would call a psychotic way, because they were following a libertarian philosophy as opposed to in real-time reality. Where is the accountability? I want accountability, and I want all those who opposed curing the crime problem in D.C. to be held accountable. Hold them accountable. If you don't, folks, they will just keep repeating these evil things that they do, these mistakes they make, the problems that they create. In fact, of the 50 major cities in this country, they have all had crime problems, great crime problems, for 50 years, and they've all been governed by Democrats for 50 years. Now, can you imagine that? It's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And these idiots in these citadels of atheism called cities today have been in control all this time, and nothing has ever gotten better. It just keeps getting worse, and the cities keep decaying. The problem is easily fixed, and the first step would be to cut off all the federal funds to the cities, as well as calling in the National Guard. Trump did it in D.C. That was simple. Why is that such a problem for any of us across this country to implement the same thing? Think about this. Our major cities in this country are being run as if they were a confederacy seceding from the Union, seceding from the states where they are located, and the national union itself, where the cities are located. We have allowed anti-American enclaves to operate all across this country. And the state legislators and federal legislators are guilty for allowing these cities such independent rule and sanctuary status. That's absurd. And while something hasn't been done at this point, we need to march into these cities and say, you belong to this state and you're going to abide by state laws. And no, you do not have self-governance. And it has to be done because these cities are so rife with corruption. Again, where is the accountability? Most importantly, what are you as a voter doing? And are you demanding of your state and federal legislators to bring these cities under control? Let's talk about the tariffs. This is the third item on my list. The Democrats were unanimously opposed to the tariffs, and a small handful of Republicans were as well. Folks, we must have a massive purge of people in leadership in this country who have brought about so much destruction. These people are incompetent, corrupt, and just pure evil, and they don't belong in the positions they're in. But of course, all too often, they're a reflection of their constituents. These leaders found it okay for other countries around the world to rape our country financially and impose great hardship upon our citizens with their tariffs. Yet, when President Trump started to impose tariffs to counter other countries' tariffs, we heard all these complaints. Oh, it's not going to work. It's going to collapse the economy. It's going to be disastrous. It's going to be apocalyptic. And they were wrong. Once again, we knew, or should have known, that this sick group of people was wrong. They have no interest in you. Their only interest is in themselves and for themselves. It was pure malevolence and malfeasance, and if I were a judge, I would have them all incarcerated and paying stiff fines for the misery that they brought upon this country. Hundreds of billions of dollars are flowing into this country right now because of the tariffs, and it will be lowering our national debt and has already lowered inflation. You need to exact a penalty on those who were wrong because they're like a bad penny. They keep popping up again and again if you don't get rid of them and remove them from the stage of power and the stage of influence. So let me say this. The problems we have are self-imposed. That's right. Christians, Republicans, conservatives, independents, and others, just usually common sense people, refuse to act or impose a consequence for the wrongs that I have just mentioned. A good friend and Christian mentor of mine, Dr. Voddie Baucham, recently passed away, pictured here with me in D.C. last year holding a copy of my book that I gave him. He had a stellar intellect and was a great theologian, lecturer, and minister. I'm devastated by his loss, which comes on top of the recent loss of Charlie Kirk. Dr. Baucham had so many great ways of saying things, and one that I believe fits our current situation in this country, which was when he said that we seem, as many Christians are, to be ruled by an 11th commandment, the 11th commandment to be nice instead of speaking the truth. Folks, if you're overly focused on needing to be liked and you have to suppress the truth to achieve that, then you're going to have the same serious problems at the pearly gates. You need to fire your public relations department. In fact, you just need to close it up. As my pastor and a family friend of Dr. Baucham stated, woe to us who keep the truth to ourselves and not speak it because it may be offensive, and the truth is offensive in a sinful world. Let me summarize and end with this. Life on this side of the Great Divide exists in two parts, physical and spiritual. Likewise, it will be the same on the other side of the divide. And the reason this is important is that once on the other side, God is the one who judges and, get this, and gives damnation after death. Now, I could care less whether you believe in hell or not, because your disbelief doesn't make it not so or makes it disappear, but that's on you. What I do care about is that those who should know better and have the power to cure and solve the problems we face as a country, or for all intents and purposes, the cause of our problems, are not doing so because we allow the wicked and the radical Democrat left to maintain power and implement policies that are killing us all. God has given us President Trump as a brief reprieve, but is also an example, like so many prophets of old, who showed us the way and told us the truth, and we killed him for it. But likewise, judgment and death quickly followed for those who ignored prophetic truth. Now is the time for us to draw a line in the sand, speak the truth with boldness, and punish those who have been wrong and have been spreading the lies from which we have all suffered. Okay, folks, I want to do something a little different here with some what I call pop-up, drive-by, quick commentary on recent headlines. First, here is some good news from my friend Byron Donalds. And here's a picture of me and him last year spending some time together and teasing about his possibly being the next vice president. This was before the election. But folks, he is a great, smart, and very talented guy. He's a representative right now, but he's going to be the next governor of Florida. He's just been endorsed by 15 Florida sheriffs. Byron is tough and a no-nonsense leader. Just recently, he yelled down an anti-American Muslim representative, Rashida Tlaib, when she dared to refer to he and other Republican colleagues as Nazis, fascist. He shamed her in open chambers and yelled her down during a hearing and made her swallow those words. And this is what we have to do as conservatives, Christians, Republicans, just common sense people in this country, is we've got to shove those lies down their throat, and we can no longer be quiet about it. Folks, as I have told you many times before, the radical leftists always tell you who and what they are by the names they call you. This is called projection. In fact, it is Tlaib who is the fascist because of the community she is from, who refuses to assimilate with the rest of America and openly tells Christians that they are no longer welcome in their own country. Can you imagine that? How stupid are we? You know, we really kind of deserve this. We don't deserve God's grace because we're so stupid sometimes. We need to wake up and do something and just not sit back and watch Netflix all the time. My friends, it is time to denaturalize those who hate this country and are now telling us that we are not welcome. Byron will be a great governor and a Trump-like governor of Florida. And he's many, many points ahead in the polls as it stands right now. Now, the next item deals with the NFL as an example of the types we need to purge. Those who are in charge of the NFL should be ashamed of themselves, and particularly those who made the decision to headline the Super Bowl halftime show with ice hater Bad Bunny. Wow, what a name. Get a load of this guy wearing a dress, a pink dress, and he's going to be your halftime NFL Super Bowl showtime? Are you serious? No real man or football lover has anything in common with this psycho, but the real villains are those who made the decisions to headline him. The secondary villains are those who tolerate it. Don't be one of those who tolerate it. Make your feelings known, and you do that a lot of times with your wallet. So you may want to consider thinking about making calls and writing letters as to your intent to boycott. Now remember, the success you had with Bud Light. Unfortunately, money matters because most in the corporate world today lack any moral code, and the only thing that forces them to do the right thing is to take away their money. And you can do that by driving down the advertising revenues. Here's an odd twist of fate, and that is from Democrat Senator John Fetterman, who is the closest thing, oddly enough, after having all of his issues with regard to a stroke, he is the closest thing the Democrats have of anyone in their ranks being somewhat rational. He has admitted that left-wing terror is a problem and is slamming his colleagues for their extreme rhetoric. Boy, that was a nice surprise for a change. Again, as I have told you all before, and I want to get this term out into the public square again, and that term is stochastic terrorism, which is when you demonize someone or some group of people enough that it increases the likelihood and probability of physical harm coming to them, like they did with Charlie Kirk. And they were really gleeful about his death. Don't ever forget that. That's who these people are. The people on the left are deadly and they hate you. You see it every day, and most of all of the perpetrators of the violence over the last 5 years have been committed by those who are, guess what? Registered Democrats, registered voters. You don't see that on the right. And here's another thing I'm going to let you know. They always want to try to come up with a moral equivalency. Well, they do the same thing on the right. No, there isn't. Just like Trump said the other day, there's no such thing as a right. I mean, it is so small, it's negligible. All of this bad stuff, all of the violence and everything is empirically established and proven to be on the left. And just rewind the tape for the last 5 years and you'll see where it's coming from. Now, here's a good one for you, and particularly for Christians. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is now pushing for digital ID, whereupon without it, you cannot hold a job. Now, this is no surprise to me because I've been watching these demons for years and I see their trajectory. But think about this as a Christian. This sounds too much like prophecy, doesn't it? In the mark of the beast in Revelation to me. Next headline is, we are facing the reality of emerging communism in our cities. How shameful is that? America is seeing the real possibility of a communist Zohan Mandami becoming the mayor of our largest city. As I've told you before, most major cities in the United Kingdom are governed by Muslims. And now it's beginning in America. This is all part of what is called the Fourth Jihad, but most of you don't even know what that is or have never even heard the term. Mandami is a Muslim and a communist on top of it, as is his father, who teaches at Columbia University. No big surprise there, because all the radicalism that we are being confronted with today is coming from the universities. And we sit back and we do nothing. We are in the mess we are in, folks, because good people simply tolerate this bloodless revolution that's been going on for decades. But it won't stay bloodless long, because we are nearing the point where you will either have to make the decision to fight on your feet or live on your knees. And folks, it's just that serious. While we feel good that Trump is in office, the problem is much deeper and worse than you know. With that, I ask you, what does your checkbook and your calendar appointments say about you with regard to being a patriot and defending your rights and freedoms? Now, here's another good one for you. A former Democrat candidate in New York who called Trump a Zionist confessed on live TV to killing his parents. Folks, I don't believe there is any other dots to connect or to be connected with regard to the Democrat left and the anti-Americanism and the violence we see today from the left. So have you made any plans to be part of the cure and to fight back? Here's one more for you. Senator Chuck Schumer from New York has now painted himself into a corner and faces the reality that he will be the one responsible for a government shutdown because he won't agree to the government funding without giving free health care to illegal aliens. But now it's all on him, because while the Republicans have 53 votes in the Senate and will vote to keep the government running, 60 votes are needed. That means that Schumer has to come up with those Democrat votes. Will he? I'd be surprised if he does. But if he doesn't, this is going to be hung around his neck, and rightfully so. That shutdown will be around his neck just like he has done to the Republicans for so many years. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And in all those years that I have watched Schumer, I have never known that man to speak the truth. His corruption is unparalleled, and just recently he has accused Trump of having weaponized the Department of Justice, more so than any other president. Well, we all know that to be a lie, because it is well established now that Biden and his administration, with the aid and assistance of people like Schumer, who abused the judicial system to take Trump out, and by any means necessary, including assassination, which they almost accomplished. So here again, we have a radical Democrat leftist accusing Trump of what the Democrats have been implementing for years. Well, there's so much more to cover, but that will do us for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jack Richardson for Jack's Corner.